Welcome one and all fellow cinephiles, Steve here with Geek Boulevard, bringing you your weekly movie review. I checked out Steven Soderbergh's latest film, Presence, and I'm here to give you my full thoughts on the film. The good, the bad, and of course my overall verdict. Keep in mind spoilers will come up later on, so if you want the experience preserved for you, I suggest you skip the spoiler section. It's listed in the timestamps in the description below, like always. Now, without further ado. Presence is of course directed by Steven Soderbergh. It is rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 25 minutes. The plot of Presence is quite simple to follow. A family moves into a new home, but it turns out that this new home has another occupant of the supernatural variety that is watching their every move. As always, we're going to start with the positives first. The use of the first person POV was, at least to me, well implemented for the most part. And the movement of the camera was very fluid and floaty, as if to remind us, the audience, that this is a spirit and they're just kind of floating through the house. And the camera gives that otherworldly quality to it in terms of these long one-shot takes. And I admired that approach to filming because one-shot takes are very hard to get right for obvious reasons. If a line gets messed up or someone doesn't hit their mark right away, it can be very difficult and costly to reshoot entire scenes from the beginning, as Soderbergh's approach to tackling that aspect of filming was, very ballsy, and I feel that it worked. There are some negatives to that approach, of course, but I'll get into that a little bit later. I also enjoy the performances in this film, mostly from Lucy Liu and Chris Sullivan, who play husband and wife, mother and father as well, Rebecca and Chris. I think their characters were written pretty well. David Koepp also wrote the script here, so he doesn't really need that much of an introduction, but if you don't know who he is, if you've seen Jurassic Park, if you've seen Mission Impossible, hell, if you've watched Spider-Man, he is the scribe for those scripts. He's written some bad ones, surely, but he hits more than he misses, I feel. And I think these two characters feel very real, and their performances are very subtle. The dialogue is so natural, like in its delivery, the way that they deliver their dialogue. Mostly with the Chris character, I feel. I loved his performance the most with just how much of a good dad he wants to be to his kids, and his relationship with his daughter in this film was very heartwarming to see. Lucy Liu's Rebecca has more of a connection with her son in the film than her daughter, and that was interesting to see. This broken family where one parent relates more with one child than the other, and the consequences of that. And that is a very real thing that does happen, unfortunately. Sometimes parents tend to favor one kid over the other. The way that this film addresses that broken family through the eyes of the spirit, I thought was, pretty well told. Now let's get into my negatives. As I stated before, one-shot takes are incredibly difficult to pull off and to get right. A lot of things just have to line up perfectly, and most of the time that means sacrificing a good performance in the take that you did, because you have to nail it in one take. And I feel at times when it came to the actors that played the children, mostly, I feel that they could have benefited from maybe like another take or two, and their performances would feel a little less forced, but unfortunately there just wasn't really enough room to do that. It was more like, okay, I think we got what we needed, let's move on. There was also an issue in the narrative that was never really elaborated or resolved in any way, and that's with Lucy Liu's character Rebecca and what her profession was. It's hinted that she did something that would be considered, illegal, and she claims it was all in service of giving her son a better life, that it was all for him. And it's teased multiple times, but we don't get answers as to what she has done or if it was even resolved. We see that it affects the family, it affects the husband especially, but it's just never revealed as to what it is. Also, I felt the abrupt cuts to black were a little jarring at times and kind of broke that immersion for me. I got so invested in some of the scenes that when they would just abruptly end, it disrupted the flow of the story a little bit. And then, we're in a new scene, a new time of day. It was just a little odd in terms of, the editing choices there. Now, I have a bone to pick with Neon, who is the production company behind Presence. They were in charge of the marketing for this. You guys kind of dropped the ball a little bit here. The trailers are a little misleading and tease that this is like a supernatural horror film, but the only supernatural aspect is, the ghost part of it. The film has some dark things in it, sure, that realistically people would find quite traumatic and horrific, but it's not what you might have thought it was from the trailers and TV spots, so just know this going in. This is a drama first and foremost, with a horror element as a narrative hook to kind of draw the audience in. The main character here is the family itself. The presence is just the narrative tool for which we witness this family and their broken lives. This is definitely going to be a detriment to the film, as more and more people who, were eager to see it will find out that it's not what they thought it was by the film's end. It's not a scary movie in the traditional sense whatsoever. My final negative has to do with the ending. So with that, this is your spoiler warning. Now, the presence in the film is a mystery as to who it is and why it's there in the first place. The family finally witnessed this presence, as it's knocking things down, it's shaking the house, the lights are flickering on and off. So they call a woman that is sensitive to these spirits, and this woman claims that the spirit does not perceive time like we do, and it doesn't know why it's there or why it feels a connection to their daughter. It doesn't even really know what it is. But then it is revealed that this woman feels like this presence isn't of someone who has died, but someone who will die. A character is introduced that is a friend of the son that he kind of meets, but clearly has some dark intentions with the daughter in mind when the two of them start to grow a little closer. This friend is invited over one night while the parents are gone and proceeds to spike the son's drink to knock him out so that he can do the same to the daughter without interference from him. The scene heavily implies some dark things. I think you might know where I'm going with this here. This presence tries to wake the son up to warn him and succeeds. So he eventually runs up to his sister's room and sees what this creep is doing and tackles him out of her bedroom window, killing himself and this psycho in the process. Once the next scene starts, the house is, cleaned out, and this is sometime after the son has passed. The family is moving out of the house now, and the mother kind of stays behind a minute longer to kind of just remember her son and remember the house one last time. She feels like there's someone there though, so she walks into the living room area and proceeds to look in the mirror, and in the mirror she sees the reflection of her son, and she just breaks down screaming and crying. And then it's pretty much revealed at that point that this presence in the house was the son all along. My only gripe with this revelation is that the son was incredibly unlikable from the start, that I just didn't really feel the weight of his sacrifice to an extent. He was very mean to his sister, calling her a freak and poking fun at her trauma and her grief as she suffered a loss of, her best friend. And now I'm just supposed to believe that he cares about her all of a sudden when he really gave no indication that he did. Sure, siblings fight all the time and all that, but he just seemed really harsh leading up to that moment, so I just couldn't really buy into it. After everything, I'm giving Presence a score of 3 out of 5. The interesting use of the first-person POV of the spirit in the house was a unique narrative choice that I felt worked for the most part. The well-written characters, mostly on the side of Lucy Liu and Chris Sullivan as the mother and father, their performances overall were good, and their delivery felt real and grounded despite the supernatural situation they found themselves in. However, the one-shot approach to the film does make the performances feel a little uneven in some scenes, as there could have been another take or two where they would have ironed those out a bit more. Also, the decision to not go into the legal trouble of Lucy Liu's character outside of a few teases as to what she has done didn't really make much sense to me, and the final revelation as to the purpose of the presence felt underwhelming and not very earned. But what did you guys think of Presence? Have you seen it yet? Are you a Soderbergh fan? And if you are, what kind of approach to filmmaking do you think he should tackle next? Or what genre would you want to see him tackle? I feel like he's kind of done it all at this point. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget that if you enjoyed this video to smash the like button and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for watching, all of you beautiful people, and until next time, always remember to keep it geeky.
It's suffering, just like you are.